while we were taking, like, our break, because we said it before, but, like, we, will record an episode and then we do 2 in one night. So while we're in the middle of that one, I was in the bathroom and I thought of this, like, funny cold open. I thought it was funny. If you could fist fight a book character, who would it be?
Ooh.
The first one that comes to mind, and I don't even have a, rationale for it, is Hunt from Crescent City.
I was gonna say Rhysand.
I don't have a rationale for it. I don't know, he's the first one who popped in my mind.
I thought of Rhysand.
I think it's just the bullshit in the first book that had me wanting to throw my book at the wall. But yes, now Rhysand as well.
Yeah, because someone in the book club has been reading Court of Silver Flames, and every time I think about it lately, I'm like, God, I want to fucking punch Rhysand in the mouth, so bad.
God. I used to love him so much, and now I want to drown him.
Yes, he sucks
pretty
now.
much.
I would probably fistfight Barrington Welk from the Raven Cycle.
Oh, that's a good one.
I need to put it on the record that not all Latin teachers suck so bad.
I should hope not.
Nor are they, evil, maniacal.
If all Latin teachers suck as bad as Barrington Welk, I'm ending our friendship here and now. Goodbye.
Yeah, that would be
Hanging up the
terrifying.
Yeah, no.
I'm also gonna add in a special one of Thomas Crespel's dad, whose name I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, he's a dick.
Mm-hmm.
He can fucking choke and die for all I care. I would beat him to death with Audrey Rose's cane.
I would like to add in Asha from The Folk of the Air.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just,
Yes.
Uh-huh.
She needs a really good cold slap.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Just a hard one right across the cheek.
Mhm.
Yep.
Also, just Locke.
I mean, yeah.
He gets, punched in the face, though,
That
so
was,
I guess...
I had first thought of Locke, but I was like, ooh, there's always that layer of yeah, but he could probably completely just kill me. So...
I would fist fight Sylvan's ex from Prince of the Sorrow. Or I guess his ex, not ex, actual fiance. He fucking sucks. I hate that guy. He, puts both main characters in actual restraints.
Ugh.
I fucking hate him. He sucks. So, Taryn can go eat shit, yeah.
Only Kristen will feel my pain on this one, but also Celia's father, Hector, from the Night Circus.
Yes.
He's the fucking worst.
John Gaius?
Oh, I just want to put him in a fucking blender.
He fucking sucks.
He sucks so much.
There's this awful character. Well, there's a handful of them that I would say, but there's this really, really, truly awful character in the Outlander series. I think his last name is Bonnet, but Stephen Bonnet. But it wouldn't be a fight. I would just figure out a way to just straight up murder him. And he does die in the book, so yay!
Yay!
Justice.
Yes.
We have a lot more of these than I thought that we would when you first initially asked this question.
The cold open that took forever.
Oh no, I was under the impression that we would have 1 million of them. That's why I thought it would be a good cold open.
Yeah, I started writing down the books in this cold open, and now I think I'm gonna make a, different category in my notes where I'm gonna erase all of those, because, there's already at least 5 of them, and I missed some. Also, B, you said Bonnet, and now all I can think of is the fact that as we're recording this, our Flag Means Death comes out tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Lauren's uncle.
Oh, that's a good one.
We have way more of these than I thought, and we'll be here all night if we keep going, so let's start the episode.
Okay, that's the last one. We gotta move on.
No more! Hi, and welcome to My Podcast Knows What You Read in the Dark, a book club podcast made by chaotic people for chaotic people. I'm Caitlin.
I'm B.
I'm Lady.
And I'm Kristen.
And we are 4 friends here to tell you what's what about the books we read and loved this month, or books we hated this month. B, I hear you got a special treat for us.
So, I didn't read much of anything this past month, not even smut.
Whoa.
Yeah, right? So September was bleak, y'all. But anyway, I just wanted... Yeah, we're just going to go for this. So a great advantage to hosting a podcast is that I have a relatively captive audience listening in to whom I can proselytize.
You have at least 3 people that you... Yeah, we have to sit here and listen to you.
Oh, don't worry. Right? So, I have a relatively captive audience listening in to whom I can proselytize about my favorite topics. But there's always a listener who might just opt out and skip my rantings. So I recommend co-hosting a podcast and heaping your hyperfixated takes onto an audience that really can't refuse to listen. So Caitlin, Kristen, and Lady, I'm not sorry.
Don't be.
Yeah, don't be.
So let me share some of my loves. I studied classics in college, so Latin, ancient Greek, and the ancient Mediterranean. And while I didn't bring a nonfiction text to today's podcast, I brought an adaptation of an ancient Greek play. Now, when I was in college, my advisor specialized in poetry, like ancient Greek and Latin poetry, and he introduced me to Sappho in the original Greek. It's beautiful and just chef's kiss, and maybe go learn ancient Greek so you can read it on your own.
Maybe not.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Proceed.
Fresh in college, unknowingly closeted. I should have known, but unknowingly closeted. Poor and acutely aware of how different I felt compared to my peers. Sappho's words struck me, and I felt seen. From there, my advisor, who might actually be listening to this podcast, introduced me to Anne Carson because she had compiled translation of Sappho's fragments in a book called If Not Winter. By the by, if you don't want to learn ancient Greek, Carson's If Not Winter shows the ancient Greek with facing English translations. So I get this book recommendation, and I devoured this book. It's right here with me, next to me right now, because I still have it, and the pages are yellowed with softened edges from frequent reference.
Love that. I love a good, well-loved book.
It is, and I've not broken the spine. Like, I'm very good. Anyway, it's very good. As with everyone, I fell in love with one of Sappho's largest fragments, and arguably her most famous one, Sappho 31. This is the one where the narrator remarks on two other subjects in the poem, a man and a woman. Cleverly, the poem starts out talking about a man, remarking, "That man seems to me like a god. It's finite moi." And you think for just a moment that perhaps it's a poem admiring this man. But then you realize he's only important in that he's taking up the attention of a woman that the narrator is focusing on. He's privy to this unidentified woman's conversation, to her laughter, to her attention, and the narrator, perhaps Sappho herself, is on the outside, a bystander to this little meet-cute. And most famously, the narrator in this poem describes so accurately the experience of the all-intimidating crush that young undergraduate me had felt exactly what Sappho described in the poem, a fire running across my skin, and I felt the echo of my throat working to say something in vain when you meet your crush and you can't say anything. Carson's text was brilliant to me, so much so that her interpretation of the last line of this poem, of this fragment, well, the last line that we have, on how to translate a certain Greek gerundive at the end of the poem, it led to my second tattoo. But anyway, that was all a digression. I'm not going to talk more about Sappho. But I am going to talk about Anne Carson because she's amazing, and she collaborated with an artist, Rosanna Bruno, to create a graphic novel of the ancient playwright Euripedes' play, The Trojan Women. And that might be the longest title we'll have to talk about, in terms of books we've referenced, because it's The Trojan Women by Euripedes, translated by Anne Carson, and illustrated by Rosanna Bruno. All right, before I go, I guess I already kind of did this anyway, but before I go all Charlie conspiracy meme on you, yell at me if I bring up a character or a story from the Trojan War cycle that you don't know or remember.
Assume that I don't know.
Yeah, same.
I'll try. Just yell at me and I'll try and connect the dots, because what you don't realize is in the Trojan War, there is a whole cycle before, long before, right before, during, right after, long time after, it's a whole thing. And then there's a whole host of prophecy and stories and all sorts of stuff before that. So my hope is that in this moment, and I don't know if it'll take, my hope is that I am that himbo meme, on the couch, talking to all of you, and you are the twink staring up at me in admiration, or if nothing else, just being damn, she knows a lot about that stuff.
What is the painting? It's like King David and the lute player or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's always how I feel about you, B. Just looking up at you with stars in my eyes.
Poor Kristen just has to deal with the conspiracy Charlie meme every day of her life.
Yeah, so I mean,
from all of us.
Yeah, from every... I mean, I act like I don't give off the vibe too, but yeah, it's fine.
The paragraph-long messages I've sent you about various text and media shows that I probably hold the crown out of the two of us. But Yes, you're guilty as well.
I was gonna say, I wonder, like Caitlin as a Sagittarius and me as an Aries, just like the fire, and then also just like the like head first of everything. Like, I wonder if we're
Yep.
All right, so let's set the scene. It's the end of the Trojan War, you know, with the big trick with a wooden horse and whatnot, and the Greeks have won. If you've never experienced this or read about it, bad stuff happens to the survivors of the losing side.
Surprising.
Right? And in ancient times, you're looking at death, rape,
Mm-hmm.
or, and really, slavery. So this play, The Trojan Women, starts the day after the end of the Trojan War. And, well, it's called The Trojan Women after all, and we know that the Greeks won. By the way, this play was written by the playwright Euripedes, and it was produced, as in put on, the show was put on, in Athens in 415, in the middle of the Peloponnesian War, which was a very real war between these basically like city-state empires of Athens and Sparta. And I say empires because like you'll see Athens and Sparta, but there's a lot more in terms of allies and such to it. But in the context of the very real Peloponnesian War, in the middle of it going on, Euripides puts on this play about the Trojan women and what is happening to them, you know, as they are literally the spoils of war. So, as an audience member watching this, you would literally be seeing this mythic story about people being the spoils of war, and you would be literally thinking about, outside of the context of the theater, the spoils of war, because it was ongoing. So anyway, in the play, the former queen of Troy, Hecuba, is basically the lead character. Other characters include her daughter Cassandra, her daughter-in-law Andromache, Helen, Menelaus, who, if you didn't know this, you'll hear Helen of Troy, but Helen was actually Helen of Sparta, and she was married to Menelaus. And there's a Greek soldier, don't worry about his name, and there's some appearances by Poseidon and Athena, and like this is a Greek play, so there's a chorus. So those are kind of like the characters that show up on stage, essentially. In general, even with the original, most folks don't like or prefer this play. They're fairly critical of it, especially compared to other plays from Euripides, like his play Medea. This play, you're with Hecuba for the day, as basically the Greeks are breaking down camp, burying their own dead, picking out sex slaves from the surviving Trojan women, making sacrifices, including, by the way, like in the concept of the Trojan War, Hecuba and King Priam, the king of Troy, had, as the myth goes, right, 50 sons and 50 daughters. And none of her sons survive. And in this, at the end of the play, 2 of her daughters have survived. One is Cassandra and one is Polyxena. But when we mention those sacrifices, off stage, one of the like updates is that Polyxena has been sacrificed at the grave of Achilles in order to ensure favorable wind for the ships returning home. So like, this is some heavy shit in this play.
Yep.
So anyway, you're with Hecuba as she hears the updates for all of this, as the female characters in the chorus shuffle into the scene with the latest terrible news, or as the Greek soldier or soldiers show up with more demands or whatever's going on. She's the queen, right, with a capital Q, over the burning rubble of her city. It's tough, right, to read and to watch, because you're confronted with the failings of humanity in a time of war. You have to watch Cassandra on stage, right? Cassandra is Hecuba's there, and she's watching her daughter Cassandra on stage act basically delusional, as if she's getting married to Agamemnon, right? To whom she's been selected as a sex slave for. So you're watching this as she's acting as if she's getting ready for a marriage, right, to Agamemnon, while both you, the audience, and she, Cassandra, the God-blessed, wait, take it back, cursed prophet Cassandra, if you don't know that story, Apollo admires her and gives her the gifts of prophecy and then tries to get with her, and she's like, psych, no, and you can't take back a gift of prophecy. So that's where Cassandra comes in, where he says, fine, you still have the gift of prophecy, but no one's gonna believe you, ever. So Cassandra is this constant, like, mouthpiece of the gods that literally, like, everyone, like, ignores or dismisses. And she's going through this delusional, like, break, and she's talking about how she's getting married, and she's going through the imagery and talks about a lot of the, like, ritual things that we know about in terms of Greek weddings. And you, the audience, knows her, you know her fate, and Cassandra knows her fate. So she's doing all this, so she's getting married and bring forward the torches and da-da-da-da, bring forward the veil, and you know exactly what's going to happen to both him, Agamemnon, and her when they return to Mycenae. And, spoiler, it's big time murder. Here's some more Charlie conspiracy stuff to come in. As a side, if you look up the Trojan Women, there's a film of it that starred Katharine Hepburn and Vanessa Redgrave. It was directed by a pretty darn famous Greek director, Michael Kakayanis. And it also starred a very famous Greek actress, Erin Papas. In the Trojan Women, she played Helen. Kakayanis and Papas, he directed a lot of interpretations of Greek plays, and oftentimes Erin Papas was a lead or the lead in that movie. And I bring that up because, more importantly, instead of watching the Trojan Women, you should watch a movie directed by Kakayanis and starring Papas, and that movie is called Iphigenia, and it's also part of the Trojan War cycle. But in the movie, so the story of Iphigenia is that Agamemnon is married to Clytemnestra, and this is where I expected I might lose people because you might not have known these names. Before they get to go to Troy, right, they all have to show up on the coast of Greece and make it a favorable sacrifice in order to get winds to go east to Troy and fight the Trojans. Okay, so in the context of that story, Helen's already been either left or been kidnapped, and she's at Troy. And Agamemnon, who's the brother of Menelaus, yes, it gets so fucking complicated. He's leading the Greeks, and they're at the shore, and they're waiting for favorable winds, and they don't come. And so, depending on what version of the play that you're looking at, or what version of the cycle, he hears from one of the priests, essentially, that he has to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia in order to have favorable winds. And so this movie deals with that story where Agamemnon calls for his daughter Iphigenia to arrive, and he tricks her and her mom by saying, "Oh, because we're going to get you married to Achilles." And so they all show up for this marriage, right? Which should be marrying Achilles. And then the movie gets through, and the play goes through talking about basically the breakdown of that lie and what happens. Watch this movie, Iphigenia. Erin Papas plays Clytemnestra in that film, and when you have the complete breakdown of this lie, and you definitely have a sacrifice, the end of the film ends on Erin Papas's face. And so in this moment, she's Clytemnestra. She knows of the big, terrible lie and crime that her husband has committed by sacrificing the daughter. And it is by far the best moment of acting ever, because you can see on her whole face that she's plotting Agamemnon's murder when he returns home from the war 10 years later. Yes, this murder is the one that Cassandra foretells in the Trojan Women. Anyway, I know that was a big thing, but go watch that movie. The Iphigenia, it is just one of my favorite movies of all time. Okay, anyway. So the original play is short, raw, disjointed even. It's sad, right? It's a Greek tragedy. No, there's no question about that, but this isn't a tragic hero that's fighting against fate, like Oedipus. Your leads and the chorus are insignificant women. So a lot of people don't like this. When you read, classicists' takes on the original play, they're like, it's not Euripedes' best.
God forbid women do anything.
Literally. Or we actually sympathize with their plight. Anyway, Anne Carson, as she's wont to do, takes Euripides' text and adapts it into something very accessible and salient to a modern reader. And Rosanna Bruno's illustrations match much of the tone set by Carson's words. First, Carson changes all of the human characters into other, species and items. Hecuba, right, Queen, is a sled dog. So you can imagine, taking the charge, but also, commanded by men in some ways. So Hecuba's a sled dog. The chorus are cows and dogs. And so part of that is, imagine a dog you've seen laying out on a hot day with nothing to do or chase or bark at. And you can visualize, you can see the analogy then.
I don't have to visualize. I'm looking at one right now.
This is where's Steve? And that's it. And so you imagine, right, you've seen dogs just the way that they lay out when it's too hot and there's nothing to do. And you can really see the visual of prisoners of war awaiting their fate, right? And this is Greece. This is this is Troy. It's hot. It's desert. It's not, it's not lush jungle or farmland. There is nothing to do but shuffle around your prison camp, waiting to be taken away as a sex slave. Like, that's what's happening to these women. Other characters, the Greek soldiers are crows. Andromache, who is the daughter-in-law of Hecuba, the wife, now widow, of Hector, she's a poplar tree, and her about-to-be-murdered son is a sapling. There are 2 moments when the gods show up in this play. One time it's Poseidon at the very beginning of the play, and he's just surging waves. And then at another point, Athena shows up in the play, and she's a pair of overalls and an owl mask.
Sure.
It's again, and I'll come back to this later, but the visuals actually lend itself to, if you're trying to to sympathize or empathize with prisoners of war and their experience in the midst of all the chaos, at the end of a war. Anyway, so Carson manages to convey dressed-down language, stark images, and defeated and jaded characters. And it works. It feels both laconic and harried at the same time. It feels disconnected and off, right? And it feels too much all at once and dragging in between. But if you think through what living through life-altering trauma and awaiting your fate when you have no agency, the meeting out of the punishment that is your life, this matches the chaos, right? What Carson and Bruno do matches the chaos of what that experience could feel like, where you have a disconnect, you have really awkward moments. Anyway, similar to the original, a lot of folks don't like this. I looked at some of the reviews, and it really is love it or hate it. Part of it is a lot of people who don't like it, they were hoping for a more updated translation of the original play, and this probably ain't going to do it for those people. And based on reviews, it didn't. But it's a great interpretation, and I really like the way Carson and Bruno played with the language and the images to bring out more from these marginalized voices. I mean, I know that I have more working knowledge of the Trojan War cycle and ancient Greek plays than many, so I really liked this, and I liked the play and the interpretation of it, but I can totally see where someone unfamiliar with this territory would feel completely lost or dislike the intentionally awkward and oppressive tone that comes through at times. But at the same time, it's 96 pages of a graphic novel, so if this is a way for you to find, an ancient play accessible, I'd say go for it.
Excellent.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah. And graphic novels, like you said, are a good way to make things more accessible for people.
I especially think that graphic novels are a very helpful way to convert plays into text, because plays are meant to be watched. Right. And a lot of the times that does not come across whenever you're just reading the script in text. So whenever you have a graphic novel, you can actually see the parts of the play that you're supposed to see as if you were there in the theater.
Mm-hmm. It is. And that's one of the things I really liked in terms of this. And actually, I was reading an interview. So Anne Carson translated first. She and Bruno met somewhere, and Anne had kind of said hey, I'm looking into collaborating with you. Would you be interested? And basically Bruno said how she was first of all, what? You don't do graphic novels, but what? Sure, cool. And then basically before she had talked to Carson again, Bruno read the play and was ugh, this sucks. And then Carson sent over her notes of what she wanted to do and translate and stuff. And Bruno was oh, this is so much better and more accessible. And then Bruno mentioned, so at one point when the chorus comes on stage, but comes on page, it's cows and dogs, but they're set in almost in a border, and it's mugshots, where it really is this moment where it's most of the Trojan women are really the unnamed chorus, and you don't know their names, and you don't know who they are, and you don't know their wants and needs and who they were before they became a prisoner. And that's what you see in this moment when they're just these mugshots. And granted, they're all dogs. So you're oh, dogs, but at the same time, you're oh.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think what really, and it really worked for me as well, again, because it's a play. You see these moments where people come on stage and off stage. And I think even more so, the graphic novel aspect of it with different cells also lent itself to that moment where you see the staging of a play in a lot of ways. So I really liked it for that. But I also, again, it's if you were looking for a true translation, this is much more of an adaptation than I would say a translation.
I think it also helps for making it harder topics accessible for people, like you said, prisoners of war and basically what happens to the losing side of war. I'm thinking of Persepolis by Margin Satrapi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought of that, and I thought of Mouse, too.
Yep.
Which, like, help people try to tackle, like, harder topic, but also, like, it means that you can show them to, like, younger audience, kind of. I know my brother read Persepolis at, like, 15, 16 for, like, a school project, and he really liked it. Like, it helps people, like, get another perspective of things.
Yeah, it's actually Persepolis and Mouse are both read at my school as, like, accessible text
nice.
To understand some really heavy topics. Yeah. But yeah, so this was definitely, like, left field. But I found it through Libby. I had looked up Anne Carson because I'm on a waiting list right now. I'm waiting for a short story from Anne Carson called The Autobiography of Red, which is an interpretation on part of the myth cycle from Hercules, and it's really good and really gay. And
that's all we want in life.
Yes. And so I'm waiting for that. And then when I was looking up Anne Carson, it was like, hey, look, this graphic novel. And I was like, Anne Carson, graphic novel? What? And I mean, for a lot of people, like Anne Carson, this is, as far as I know, the only graphic novel she's been a part of, like collaborated with. Whereas most things are either translations or these like play on translations or adaptations. Even less so than like an interpretation on a story. If Not Winter is basically like a collection of all of Sappho's fragments, and then Carson has gone through and translated in her own way. And I love it. And I always am just like, I'll even on Tumblr sit there and like anytime someone brings up Anne Carson on Tumblr, because she's just such a rad human being. I just love like everything that she does. And so I was like, let me give this a try.
She's Canadian. Whoop whoop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm really glad that you brought a graphic novel to the podcast because I really love graphic novels and I don't feel like they get enough credit for the way that graphic novels can really contribute to the power of a story.
Mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm.
Whenever we were in DC last week for the Hozier concert, we went to the Museum of African American History and I got a graphic novel version of Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, which is a really good book if you've never read it. But the graphic novel version, I feel like, I don't know, some things you just need to see to experience the full range of emotion that the author wants you to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And graphic novels achieve that in a way that does not take anything away from the text. It's not an adaptation in a movie format that may be cutting out parts here and there. Like, graphic novels can tell the same story in a visual format that is just so good for a lot of stories.
Oh, yeah.
And more accessible for folks.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I was kind of debating whether or not to bring it, and I was like, you know what? Partly because I was like, oh, this is, like, an ancient play, and, like, who cares? But at the same time, very much to what you're speaking to. I know, but, like, very much to what Caitlin, what you're speaking to. I was like, yeah, but it's a graphic novel, and, like, if this is someone's chance to be like, huh, I wonder what that's about. Like, I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, if you're someone who thinks that you're not a big reader in general, I highly recommend starting with a graphic novel adaptation of a book that you find interesting, or just a graphic novel series in and of itself, because it's a great way to get used to sitting down and reading a lot of text in one sitting, but it also has that visual breakup that you're looking for that kind of keeps you interested and entertained. And it's just, graphic novels deserve so much more acknowledgement in the literary world than they get, and I'll die mad about it.
Well, and I've noticed, so, I mean, I've taught middle school through high school, and especially with some middle schoolers who perhaps are more reluctant readers, it's that they get frustrated that they see words on the page and they can't visualize it. And I tried working, like, with Latin, right? I had students read, graphic novels, and they had kind of like anecdotally told me, like, you see the visual, like you see the image in the cell, but then because you have something to work with, then they were able to kind of bridge that gap and start to like do that world building and that visualizing beyond what's just in the cell. And so like, that's one thing I really, really like in terms of graphic novels, like creating that little bridge, to kind of make a reading a more like visually in your imagination, but like a visually rich experience.
They're also very good for learning new languages.
Yes.
Lady, what did you read this month?
I'm bringing us back to a more traditional episode of my podcast Knows What You Read in the Dark.
Okay.
Because I'm bringing fantasy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So a few months ago, we did an episode where we picked books for each other, and Caitlin sent me 2 books, and now she's going to know exactly what I'm going to talk about.
Oh my god!
Since I was short on time back then, I picked the shortest one, The Bees by Laini Pohl. Today I'll be talking about the other one, which was Stranger Dreamer by Laini Taylor.
Ooh.
Yes!
Ooh. I've had this on my radar for a while, so...
Yeah. I don't even know how to describe this book and make people want to read it.
Those are my bread and butter. I think I need to look inside myself because my bread and butter are books I want to recommend to people that you cannot explain to another human being.
Yeah. And like maybe that's why no one's talking about it. Because this book has a lot of good reviews. It has like a 4.6 or something on Goodreads for like 100,000 like reviews, right?
Wow.
It's really, really good. And many people love it dearly, but like no one is gushing about it, which I think is weird. And I think Caitlin had a similar experience as me while reading the book, which is you start it and then you stop it because life gets in the way, and then you pick it back up and like you're falling in love with it all over again. And I think that's like the biggest like compliment I can give this book is like, you're just in it.
Yes.
You can just like start it again and you're gonna be in it. Like you remember what's going on, you remember everything, the writing's always on point. Anyway, so our protagonist is an orphan in the kingdom of Zosma. He was raised at an abbey by monks, and as a baby he cried so little that they named him Laszlo after one of the monks' mute uncle. His name is Laszlo Strange, as Strange is the surname for every orphan in this kingdom. He disliked living with the monks, but he loved like listening to their stories, often like myths and fairy tales. And I got here a little quote that I got from Goodreads about it that I really like. It's kind of long, but it gives you an idea of the kind of writing you can expect from this book. He drifted about with his head full of myths, always at least half lost in some other land of stories. Demons and wingsmiths, seraphim and spirits, he loved it all. He believed in magic like a child and in ghosts like a peasant. His nose was broken by a falling volume of fairy tales on his first day on job, and that they say told you everything you needed to know about Laszlo Strange. Head in the clouds, world of his own, fairy tales and fancy. When Laszlo was 5 years old, everyone in this world suddenly forgot the name of the mythical city of Weep. Weep is like now the new name that they know for it. Nobody remembers the original name of it. And most people just didn't think much of it. They were just like, okay, whatever, like we forgot about this city, no one cares. But Laszlo never really let it go. So when he played pretend as a kid, he would personify a Tiserkane, which is the legendary warriors of the city of Weep. At 13, he left the abbey to become a junior librarian in the Great Library of Zosma. And his position in the library wasn't really like high in the hierarchy, but it still allowed him access to the books, which is what he wants because he loves stories and myths and stuff. And he used those to compile his own personal series of books about Weep. He's basically like autism coded as fuck. Like, this is hyperfixation if I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But even as at the library, he was kind of an outcast. He was the weirdo obsessed with a city no one cares about, right? They called him like Strange the Dreamer as a way to bully him because like he had this tendency to be always in his head and like basically live in fairy tales. Until one day, Tiserkane warriors arrive at the Great Library along with a legendary figure, Errol Fane, the Godslayer. These people are people from the city of Weep who are basically coming here because they are looking for people of specific talents to join them on their journey back to Weep, because they need skilled experts to solve a mysterious issue that they're having in the city. And they won't tell anyone what it is, but they need like basically skilled people. They pick up some explosion expert, they pick up some people who make like flying ships and stuff like that. But since he's a nobody, Laszlo doesn't get picked. Instead, Thion Nero does, his bully of sorts. It's a pretty, like, one-sided hatred, as Laszlo really doesn't care enough about anything other than Weep to hate Thion. But Thion Nero hates him, because he's like an edgy man with a sad past and secret that only Laszlo knows. It's problematic of me, but I really like Lion Nero.
I also like him.
I just love an angry man.
We have made it abundantly clear, if you listen to this podcast, that all of us are problematic. I don't think anyone is like coming
I'm
here.
not making excuses for myself anymore.
Yeah,
and I'm
like,
not making excuses for him. He sucks and I love
If you're
him.
here, you already know.
Yeah, like we're toxic and problematic, and you just have to be okay with it if you're going to stay here for the long haul.
Yeah. I've read this book a few months ago, but I think what happened between them is that basically Laszlo at one point saw him getting beaten up by his uncle or his father or whatever, and Theon Nero doesn't want him to tell anyone, and also like Theon Nero got like secrets of Weep from Laszlo or something like that. Maybe Caitlin remembers more than me, but anyway.
Do not. It has been probably 8 years since I read this book.
Yeah. It's like a one-sided hatred between this kid who's always in the clouds and this, like, golden child that everyone loves. Anyway, Laszlo makes a case for himself to Errol Fane. He's respectful in the way that he treats the warriors. He goes, like, as someone who's obsessed with the city of Weep, and I'm sure B can relate to this, he has even learned the language of these people, despite it being, like, a lost city that no one knows anything about. So, like, he basically speaks to the delegation in their language instead of the language that Laszlo speaks.
It's amazing when students don't understand Latin, especially because I don't teach Latin anymore, but when I say things and I start muttering in Latin and they just look at me like, oh no.
Mood?
Yeah.
You'll understand that since it's a, like, lost city, most people don't bother learning their language or even just, like, basic greetings for them. So, like, it's a big point for Laszlo. Like, it's a big point in his camp.
Mm-hmm.
He begs Errol Fane to allow him on the trip as his personal secretary, which Errol Fane accepts, because Laszlo is a pretty damn good storyteller, if nothing else, and he can entertain the warriors on the, like, long trip back home. And as you get into part 2 of the book, the POV completely changes, and you're now reading about a quintet of kids/teenagers trapped into a citadel. As their story goes on, you understand that they're in the citadel floating above Weep, the very one that Errol Fane will soon ask his crew, including Laszlo, to blow up, to destroy. They're trying to find a way to get rid of that thing, because it's an eyesore and it's like blocking the sun and everything. And the kids are the last of their kind. They're the children of the gods that Errol Fane slew. They live in fear of like the city that's under them, realizing that they're still alive, while at the same time they're like dreaming of a life where they're free to exist and laugh and love and all the good things that make life worth living. We mostly follow Sarai, the daughter of the goddess of despair. Each godling child has a specific power, like one of them controls fire, another one can grow things. Sarai's power allows her to visit the people that are down under. She can influence their dreams, and mostly their nightmares. She has this way of like controlling them, which means that she can also see through their dreams and their nightmares what their life is like what they love, how they live, and she basically just like wants all of it. Like she's yearns for it, she's longing for it. And this is where I want to stop because this book is a lot and I don't want to spoil too much of it. Just enough that you can see how Laszlo and Sarai would make a cute little couple of dreamers, just like full of yearning. I wouldn't say that the romance is the main point of the story, but it's absolutely adorable.
Oh my god. It is sickeningly sweet. It's so cute.
Yes, it's the first love for both of them. They're like curious, they're innocent, they're cuties. I love them. I haven't read the second book yet. I've started it, and just like this one, I'm gonna pick it up eventually, and I'm still gonna love it even more.
Yep.
The writing is just like consistently beautiful. Every chapter has a line that will like punch you in the face. It's
oh, those are my favorite.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to read this.
And I can vouch for what Lady said. It's definitely a book where like the writing is so solid that even though I haven't, like I said, it's been years since I've read this book, and even though I can't remember a lot of the particulars, I can literally hear the audiobook narrator pulling some of these things that Lady is talking about. And I've been listening to the Muse of Nightmares, that's the second book. I've been listening to that audiobook on and off for God only knows how long. And it's the same thing. Every time I jump back in, it's not, I don't have to go back and re-listen. I know where I'm at. Like, the writing is so solid that I am there with the characters. I don't have to backtrack or look up anything. I can jump right back in at any time.
That's pretty high praise, because all of us here are very much like, we put a book down and we forget what we read. So, like...
Depends on the book, but yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, like, I'm being general, but yeah, so, like, it's, like, refreshing that you are getting so hooked into the story that, like, you can put it down for a couple of weeks or however long and pick it back up and you remember every single thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a quote. I'm going to leave you on a quote from the second book, actually, that I read on Goodreads, and I was like, oh, I need to get back to this book. I believe it's about Sarai. Her voice would die before she ran out of rage. She could scream a hole in her throat and come unraveled, fall to pieces like moth-chewed silk, and still from the leftover shreds of her, the little pile of tatters would pour forth this unending stream.
If that ain't the female experience...
I love a full image.
It's so good.
I think if I remember correctly, that's actually Minya, but
It could be
don't
Minya too, yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to mislead you, but still, it's good either way.
Good characters. Like, Minya is a great antagonist slash protagonist. Like, she's a complicated character, and it's so good.
Yeah.
Even Errol Fane, who is, not to spoil too much, but he's basically, like, Laszlo's looking up to him, but from Sarai's point of view and from the kid's point of view, this guy's trying to basically kill them and ruin their life. It's, like, such a complicated, like, angst-filled relationship between all of these characters that makes you just want to scream into a pillow.
Say less.
Yes.
You don't have to say anymore.
Yeah. It's really, really good. And I cannot recommend the audiobook enough. I love the narrator. I wish I knew his name.
I have it on Libby, does it say? Read by Steve West.
Steve West. He has this great, like, very deep, even voice that's soothing. It's like, it's almost like you're listening to one of those commercials for, like, the Calm app where they talk about reading you to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. He's so good. And he does these character voices for all of the characters that are just very immersive. And yeah, I can't recommend the audiobook enough.
For a total tonal shift once again in this episode, I have a game for you guys.
Yay!
Ooh.
I'm calling this game Vibe Check.
Vibe check. Okay.
Oh.
It's a game. Basically, we've talked before about how sometimes at the end of a synopsis of a book, you're gonna have or at the beginning of it, you're gonna have 4 fans of blank.
Ugh.
And you're gonna, like, it's gonna be like the most random thing you've ever read, and it has nothing to do with the book. Just like The Beast by Laini Pohl having 4 fans of The Hunger Games.
Okay.
I found a BuzzFeed article that's called, "Here are some book recommendations for fans of blank." And
Oh god.
I'm gonna give you the books, and you have to guess what the book is from, like, the book
Oh
that
my
it's
God.
for fans of.
Oh, God.
Okay.
This is incredible.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I have 2. The first one's the main one, the other one just because I thought it was funny, and I wanted to talk about this.
I'm
weird
gonna be so bad at this. All right.
Me too, but it's okay.
I know.
It's fine. So I've made you a little graphic for visual people. There you go. I'm gonna still talk about the book. So the BuzzFeed article recommends these books for fans of book that you have to guess. The books are A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, Belladonna by Adeline Grace, What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods, King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett Sinclair, and Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert.
Jesus.
I've read 4 of 6.
Yeah, I've read 3 of 6 and started a 4th, and I don't think that two of these things are not like the others.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There were a lot more books on the list. I just took the ones that I figured people here would know what they are.
Okay.
Is it Lightlark?
No, it's not Lightlark.
Thank God.
I'm like trying to make things make sense, and it's not working. I don't know enough about what lies beyond the veil.
You don't need to
know anything. You don't. It's like basically like A Court of Thorns and Roses, or I guess once Resend comes in the picture.
Yeah,
so
basically. It's
um,
not good.
What what's that one FBAA? What's that book's title
Blood and
again?
Ash?
From Blood and Ash.
Yeah,
That's actually it!
Wow.
Oh my God.
I win.
So I guess BuzzFeed kind of has the vibe right.
No, I just looked at the books and looked.
No, they have the vibe right.
Yeah.
They have the vibe right.
And I have a bonus one for you guys, because I saw this. This isn't from an article. I've merged two things. I found an article, but also a Reddit post that asking for recommendation of books similar to this book. And these are the recommendations. And I just can't. So, vibe check once again. What is this book that people are saying is similar to? The Foxhole Quote by Nora Sakovic. Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis.
What the
What
fuck?
the fuck?
Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas.
None of these are like the other.
Is the Raven cycle?
What the fuck?
What did you say, B?
I said this is like the Raven cycle.
No.
I mean,
That's what I thought too.
I know.
Mostly because of the Foxhole Court and
yeah.
Carry On.
I was thinking Cemetery Boys and Foxhole Court, but Prince Caspian's throwing me off.
I know.
Yeah, what the fuck is he doing here?
yeah, like, what is
I
Big
don't
Barks
know.
doing here?
How did you get here?
For people listening, I made a little graphic for the other hosts of the podcast, and I put the cover of Prince Caspian with instead of the actual design on it, I put a heart with Ben Barnes' face.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you did that because I was like, who the fuck? I haven't ever talked about it on the podcast, but I'm like a huge Narnia fan, and I was a very big into Narnia as a kid, movies and books. I have the whole collection still as an adult, whatever. And I was like, I've never seen this. This is garbage. Who did this?
It's
But-
me!
It was you.
I don't know.
You're gonna be so confused. I have no idea why Prince Caspian's in this.
Okay, but if we ignore Prince Caspian,
Okay, I'm trying to ignore Prince
gay,
Caspian.
can't.
gay. All right.
I'll say all of these stories have queer people in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think the person who made this article was just like, what are some queer books I can compare this book to?
Okay, so let's think.
Well, that's why I was like Raven cycle maybe, but
I want to get this so bad.
is it the red? What is that? The red,
White, and royal blue. That's what I was gonna say, but it felt wrong.
No.
Oh my god. I really thought you were going to say yes.
That would have been terrifying.
And like Prince
and I
Caspian's
would've-
thrown in just because of the prince in that one.
Yes.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Kate,
No
did you
idea.
have last guess? No.
No, I have no
Wait,
guesses.
and it's not Six of Crows.
No.
The only guess I had was the same one that B had, which is red, white, and royal blue.
Yeah.
It's the Captive Prince.
What the
What?
What?
Why? Okay,
I don't know.
I have so many
How?
questions.
Caspian on here?
Yeah, Prince Caspian is a children's book.
I understand the Foxhole Court, kind of, because I
I
think
don't.
it's problematic enemies to lovers, question mark? And Carry On is a Drarry fanfiction, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I guess
But Song of Achilles?
the other, Prince Caspian.
This confuses me.
I think someone just saw Prince and was like, Prince Caspian.
I have been staring at my computer screen with like the completely confused head tilt, and I haven't said a thing because my brain is like literally misfiring at this.
I'm picturing you like cause steel is heavier than feathers. I don't get.
Yep.
I don't get.
This is like the most confusing thing I've ever seen.
I think there's another way to make this game where I would have to like every time I see a book that says for fans of blank, I just put them in an Excel spreadsheet and I make a list. But I didn't have time for this, so I went with articles.
I want to do this again.
I've been thinking of this game for a while, and this is the only way I figured out how to make it so far.
I want to talk to the person that, like, did this.
Well, the second one is from Reddit, right? Like someone was asking for recommendations.
Prince Caspian's the one from Reddit. Where someone was like, do you know any books similar to The Captive Prince? And this person was like, Prince Caspian.
They have never left their home.
They have never read The Captive Prince
Yeah.
or Prince Caspian.
No.
Is it literally because it has to be because Caspian lived with his shitty uncle? Is that the only
That's
reason?
a stretch.
That has to be it.
That is
There's
such
no
a stretch.
There's no other correlations.
At a minimum, right? Like at a minimum, First of all, just look at cute little Ben Barnes and that smile. And, like, that is not trauma, like altered.
Hear me out.
Lauren.
Ben Barnes as August.
That could work, but...
Dye his, like, bleach his hair.
No,
No.
that's a sin.
No.
You look so ugly as a blonde.
I think so. Oh, did someone make an edit of this? Ben Barnes blonde. Oh, ugh. I have sent you a picture of blonde Ben Barnes, and I don't like it.
I don't like his, like,
Ugh.
90s highlights.
This one is worse because I think someone photoshopped him blue eyes.
Ugh!
This is great for a podcast, by the way.
Talk about a fucking jump scare. That game was really fun. We should do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely want to play that again.
I can't believe B got that so fast.
I'm definitely going to start, anytime I see a book listed as for fans of blank, I'm going to start compiling them.
Oh yeah,
Please.
absolutely.
But, like, literally, I hate how many times it's like, for fans of The Cruel Prince. And I'm like, this is not at all the same fucking vibe.
It never is.
We've said it on the podcast before, and I'll say it again. It says that on Winter Song
I can't.
for fans of The Cruel Prince.
What?
Yeah, it says that on Winter Song. That is why originally I put that book on my to-read list.
We're just gonna keep getting burned and not learn a lesson.
Nope. Well, we all hope that you passed the vibe check on our books list. Our next episode will be out November 21st.
Which is going to be right around the corner of our podcast birthday.
Yeah.
Our first birthday.
Yes, it's right around the corner from our podcast birthday.
1 year of my podcast was what you read in the dark.
Yeah. We have to do something special on our next recording because that will be the episode that comes out
Absolutely.
on our
Yes.
podcast birthday.
Yay!
A whole year.
Yes.
You can find us at Red in the Dark Pod on Instagram and Tumblr. Our email is redinthedarkpod@gmail.com if you want to ask a question about any of the books we discussed on this episode. We also have a book club. You can find us at Worn Page Library on Instagram and Tumblr, which will have details on how to join our Discord. Finally, we're hosting some challenges on Storygraph through the book club, which you can find by searching Worn Page Library's Book of the Month and Worn Page Library's 23 for 2023 in the challenges section of the app. B's book from this episode was The Trojan Women by Euripedes, translated by Anne Carson, illustrated by Rosanna Bruno. Lady's book was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Books we mentioned in the intro were Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, Prince of the Sorrows by Kellen Graves, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstein, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. In the episode we discussed If Not Winter by Anne Carson, Persepolis by Marjane Strapai, Maas by Art Spiegelman, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, The Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. In our game, we discussed A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, Belladonna by Adeline Grace, What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods, King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair, Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert, The Foxhole Court by Nora Sokovic, Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis, Why, Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and The Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Keep reading, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye!
Bye.
Bye. I just got jump scared by blonde Ben Barnes.